We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Larry Funches, file number 19-03012. Council appearance.
Brian Ring on behalf of the people.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. John Abbott representing Mr. Funches. He's present and seated to my right.
Okay, Mr. Funches, how are you?
How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. Today's the date and the time that was set for a preliminary examination, and there was a P53 contempt. How are we proceeding?
Your Honor, this time the people will wish to run the exam.
He wasn't running on the P53, but let's see. We're proceeding on the P53 violation as well.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Any additional preliminary matters?
None from the people, Your Honor.
Not from the defense.
Okay, you can call your witness.
People call Michelle.
What I was doing instead of trust falling. We don't. You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth and the whole truth under the penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You can have a seat. Okay, there's a microphone that's in front of you, and we have my court reporter behind you. She has to take down everything that's being stated here today, so your responses must be verbal, okay?
Okay.
You need to make sure you give a yes and no to yes and no questions, and you also can't do mm-hms and uh-hs or head nods because we can't read that into the record. If any of the attorneys make an objection, you would stop your response. I'll make a ruling on that objection, and then I'll tell you whether or not you can give that answer or not, okay?
Okay.
If you misunderstand a question, you can always ask or notify the asker that you've misunderstood the question so they can repeat it, okay? Or rephrase it if necessary. I want you to state your first and your last name and spell both of them.
Michelle Geary, Michelle
Okay, did you bring your phone up there?
Yeah.
Is it turned off? Okay, very good. You can proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Excuse me. Michelle, we're gonna go back to June 2nd of 2019. On that day, were you at an apartment on Pine Brook Manor
Yes,
at the corner of Miller and Waverly?
Yeah.
Is that in the city of Lansing,
yes, it was.
in County, Michigan?
Yes.
And who were you there with?
I was there with my friend that was renting there. Her name's Jessica Tom, and I was also with Larry.
And how do you know Larry Funches?
He was my boyfriend at the time.
And is Larry Funches in the courtroom today?
Yeah.
Can you please point to him and describe something he's wearing?
He was wearing a black coat.
And you let the record reflect that the witness identified the defendant.
No objection.
So noted.
And while you were there, what were you guys doing?
We were just hanging out together, just sitting around having conversations. we weren't arguing or doing anything really. We were just sitting down having conversations.
Did something that sticks out in your mind at that place on that day?
He had came up to me and punched me in the stomach that day. I don't know why. We weren't arguing. It was just completely random.
And where were you when he punched you in the stomach?
I think I was sitting down at the dining room table that she had in her apartment.
And where was he?
He was on the other side and then he came and stood up and punched me.
Were you arguing about anything before that happened?
No.
And you say he punched you in the stomach. Was there anything significant about that?
I mean, not really.
Were you pregnant at the time that he punched you in the stomach?
Oh, yes.
And who's the child? Who was the father of that
He's
child?
the father of the child.
So what did you do after he punched you in your pregnancy?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. She's already testified to all of the elements of the evidence from the jurisdiction. So nothing she says from this point forward can make anything more or less likely to be true.
Okay, you want to respond to the objection as to relevance, and that's relevant as to his question as to what did she do after he punched you in the stomach? Okay,
That's correct. Your Honor.
do you want to respond to the objection?
No, I was just laying out what happened after the event. What happened after the event? If Mr. Abbott thinks all the elements are met, then I'm happy to have no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
It's up to you. That it may or may not be relevant. I don't know why you're asking. I don't know if you're trying to find out if she got medical treatment. I couldn't speak to that.
And that is actually where I was going, but you did in fact.
Okay, well, I'll allow it.
So right after he punched you, what happened?
After that, we started arguing after that. I asked him why he did what he did. He wouldn't answer me. And then he had left. So when he had left, I had locked the door and we locked him back in. And the next morning, I went and saw my sister and reported it
Where did you
at
see?
the hospital.
Where did you see medical treatment at?
Square root.
No further questions this time. Thank you.
Cross exam?
Yeah. So when this punch happened, where were you?
I was sitting in a dining room at the dining room.
And was he also sitting at the dining room table?
Until he stood up and punched me. Yeah.
Okay. And did you stand up at the same time?
No.
And you're saying he punched you in the stomach?
Yes.
You were still seated at the dining room table? Do you remember speaking with a police officer when you were at Sparrow Hospital?
Yes.
And did you report this to the police officer?
Yes, I did.
And at the time you made that report, you understood that it was being, the report was being made for a criminal prosecution?
Yes.
And so you were being very careful about telling the truth?
Yes.
And being accurate?
Yes.
But,
Can you describe how you were seated at the table? Was the table in front of you?
The table was, I would say maybe like half a foot in front of me.
So very briefly, based off your question, so were you facing the table or were you facing away
I was
from it?
facing the table.
And did the defendant know you were pregnant at that time?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Did Eddie cross based on my question?
no, thank you.
Okay. Can this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, since in this hearing, you may be excused.
One of the things I can do is as well, really.
Oh, that's correct. Do you call another witness on this?
No, I'm not, Judge.
Oh, well, then you can question her about right now.
Okay.
You can have a seat, ma'am.
Ready to go for the red day. Okay. On March 30th, you remember where you were on March 30th?
I don't know.
Is that 824 West Lever Street?
Yes.
And can you tell me about what happened on that day?
On that day, our daughter that is not biologically mine came downstairs and asked me if I could please take her dad, his belongings, and that if I would come see him. Something else along those lines. I can't remember what she said.
And who was her dad?
Very confusing.
And did you have to do, how did you feel when you heard that?
I told her no, that that was illegal, and that her dad knew that that was illegal. And I then proceeded, after she had left, I told her to give me the phone that he was contacting. And then I reported it to the police.
Did you stay at your home that night?
Yes, I did.
No further questions, Johnny.
Or cross-examine that.
So that was March 30th of this year? So just a couple of weeks ago? Okay. And so let me get this straight. Your daughter came downstairs and initiated this conversation with you? And was Mr. Funches upstairs?
No, he was on the phone with her.
So she called him?
No, he called her.
How do you know that?
I have the phone record log.
And was she using her phone?
She's using a phone that I gave her under my.
Okay. And so on that night, he had, it's your understanding then, based on what happened, that he'd had a conversation with your daughter? He had a conversation with you? Okay. And he didn't come over to your house? Did he?
No.
And excuse me. And the items he was referring to, clothing, personal belongings, is that what he was talking about?
Yeah.
And she came out and asked if you were going to make an arrangement to get those things delivered to him.
No, she came down and asked me what he told her to ask me, which I just said.
Did she say he told her? To
Yes,
ask?
she did.
Any further questions?
Very briefly. Was he still on the phone when you brought it down?
No,
No.
No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, you may be excused from the stand.
thank you.
Any additional witnesses today?
No additional ones. Thank you.
Will the defense be calling any witnesses?
Sure. I'll call Mr. Funches on P53.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give us the truth and the whole truth under the penalty of perjury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. You can have a seat, dear sir. Did you want to go to your client?
Thank you. Mr. Funches, could you please state your name and then spell that for the record?
Larry Darnell Funches III, LARRY-FUNCHES.
And you understand that part of the conditions of your bond is they have no contact with the young lady that was just testifying?
Yes, I do.
And you heard her testimony?
Yes.
And do you recall having a conversation with your daughter on that day?
Yes, at first, daughter is her biologically mom. I was talking to her. She called me. I was talking to her first because we was trying to figure out what we was doing about our kids.
Okay.
And
Just that you want to make sure you remember that day.
yes,
Okay. And did you know at that time that she was where she was located?
at that time, her mom had just called me like right before that, and she told me that she had talked to her. So
Okay.
she told me to call the phone to talk to the kids.
Okay, and that woman is not the woman you just got.
No, it's not.
Okay. So did you tell your daughter, tell Michelle Gary any messages at all?
Not to tell her specifically. No, my daughter asked me, could she take them to her take my belongings to her grandma's house and I could get them from there.
Okay. Did you initiate any communication regarding that topic with your daughter?
No, not in this sense.
Nothing from you.
How old is this daughter?
She's 9 years old. I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and our son with Michelle Gary, he'll be 4 this year.
Okay, so this daughter, whose biological daughter is it?
Her mom is Elisa Trevino. His
Okay.
biological mom.
But you're the biological father?
Yes.
Okay, Miss Gary's not the,
No, they were
Wait.
staying with Miss Gary's house because I'm the father. We were together. Since
Got it.
I'm not at the house anymore. We was trying to figure out what was going on with my kids. Since she's not the birth mom.
got it. Is there a custody order at all in place?
Not with the biological mom. Like me and her is actually on pretty good. They've been staying with me while she was trying to get herself taken in order. But I do have all the steps in place to where I can
Got
get custody for
I
it.
just wanted to make sure, I just was questioning whether or not was there any custody as it relates to Miss Gary. So you
No,
and
ma'am.
you and the biological mother share custody is what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm not on their birth certificates, but yes, we do.
Okay.
They live at my address and feed them, clothe them, everything like
Okay, and so the 30th, that was the date that you were arraigned on the underlying charge, correct?
that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then who did you say initiated the phone call with your daughter?
Her mom, I was talking to her, but her
Her
biological. mother.
biological mom, okay.
Yes, because they was trying to see what's going on with the
What's
kids.
going on,
and with
got it.
my
Okay,
belongings.
sounds good. Any redirect?
Very, CrossFit, very briefly.
Mhm.
So this daughter wasn't, I'm a little confused, sorry, I'm a little confused on the family dichotomy here. The daughter,
Yes, that.
the 9-year-old that asked Miss Geary, the 9-year-old that asked Miss Geary to get your stuff, is that Miss Geary's daughter?
No.
Okay,
No.
okay, now I think I'm tracking now, okay,
Yes, I only have a son by her.
okay,
Yeah.
a son, okay. Sorry, I was a little confused by
Yes.
and so you were talking to your 9-year-old daughter about your stuff?
Yes, because they normally would go to their grandma's house on the weekend, and they were just talking to their mom. 'Cause when I went to jail, the police came to her house, and I couldn't get any of my belongings, my mother's ashes, my car, my title, everything's still at her house. I'm not allowed to get anything through the restraining order, so I'm trying to figure out what I can do about that.
And you knew your 9-year-old was there at Miss Geary's house on that
I
day?
didn't know she was at the house with her right there, because normally it'd be at their grandma's house on the weekends, but she didn't take them there. She took them later on that day, I guess. Because my 9-year-old called me from her grandma's phone once she got to her grandmother's house.
I have no clue.
Okay, any other questions, Mr. Abbott?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Funches.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you can proceed to argument on the DD30.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Geary testified that on June 19th of 2019, she was seated at the table with Mr. Funches, who is the father of her child. She was pregnant with that child at the time. They had been dating. They got into an argument. They didn't get into an argument before, but he stood up and punched her in the stomach, and then they got into an argument. He left. She went to sleep. She woke up the next day and went to Sparrow to seek medical treatment for that, Your Honor. That meets all the elements of the domestic violence offense, Your Honor, and I would ask the court to find this over. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Abbott?
Thank you, Your Honor. Although she did say enough, I think, there was certain, some of the standard of proof here necessary. Still remains to be seen how a punch could be delivered if someone is sitting up against the routine. But we'll leave that for the jury. And so I'll leave it to the court's discretion to find on the charge.
Thank you. Okay, just for the record, I'm gonna dismiss the P53 violation. And that's just because after hearing that the child was actually a biological child of the defendant with someone else who was somehow or another in the custody of Miss Gary, I think it can get a little murky about what was going on there, but that's his kid, not her. So even if he did have to make a phone call to make arrangements, I think that I would have granted him that. I don't have any violations since that date. It looks like that was the date he was arraigned. And so I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. He was just trying to make childcare and get his things or whatever by talking to his child. And so we'll dismiss the P53 violation. As to the DB third, today was the date set for a preliminary examination. And at the time of the preliminary examination, the burden is on the prosecution to establish whether or not they have sufficient probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause sufficient to charge you with the crime. And so that's just more than mere suspicion that a crime was committed is what they need to establish here. And they don't need to meet their burden here, which is beyond from trial, which is beyond a reasonable doubt. The evidence we have here today is testimony evidence from Michelle Gary, who stated that on the date of June 2nd, 2019, she was in a dating relationship. She described the person she identified as a defendant as her boyfriend, and that she was present at the area of Pine Manor, Adder, Miller, and Waverly, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan. And that the defendant came up to her and randomly punched her in the stomach. She said she was sitting at the table, dining room table, that they wasn't arguing. That there's a lot of gray there. Something's missing, something's off. I can't speak to what it is. And so again, but this is not a trial. So we're not here to determine whether or not there's enough to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Just enough to establish more than mere suspicion that a crime was committed. And her testimony, which is clear, was that there was an unprovoked punching of her in the stomach. Based on her testimony, I'm going to find there's sufficient probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause sufficient to charge you, the person she identified as punching her, with the crime. And I'll leave that to Mr. Abbott to create reasonable doubt at trial. Makes it to trial. Nonetheless, domestic violence with count 1 charges of third offense notice will be bound over to the circuit court for a bind over date of April 26th. You do not need to appear in court on that date. That's the date the circuit court will get the file from the district court. And then they'll set it for a pre-trial. Both you and Mr. Abbott will be made aware of that, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Before, like this, can I ask you one question, please?
You sure can.
She still has a lot of my belongings, like my mother's ashes. Is there a way, like, a police officer can go to our house and, like, just my family members get the rest of my belongings or anything like that?
Yeah, I did look at the PA-53, the bond when we were here, because I didn't see where Mary Kelly, when she arranged you, that she allowed you to go with a peace officer to remove your items. I am going to allow you to go with law enforcement to remove your personal belongings from the property, okay?
Thank you. I guess the most important thing to me.
Do you have any other questions at this time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, bond was set at 500 personal cognizance with a no contact order that will continue. Any additional matters for the record?
Nothing on behalf of the people. Thank you, Your Honor.
Nothing from the text, thank you.
You're all set, sir.
All right, thank you, ma'am.